Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today, to change things up a little bit from last week, we are covering Zombieland, which came out in 2009. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. So, with my creamed cinnamon honey and my lemon juice, I am drinking the Republic of Teas, the Crown, the Queen's Blend, or the Queen's Evening Tea. It's got biodynamic, which I still don't know what that means, organic chamomile, and natural honey flavor. But unfortunately, the Crown series in the Republic of Tea is discontinued, but I will hunt down the alternative version for the Republic of Tea and have that linked below.
Yes. And I am drinking Bigelow's Mint Medley Herbal Tea, which has peppermint leaves, spearmint leaves, rose hips, lemon peel, and hibiscus. It is caffeine-free. I have finished that other cup.
And thank you to the Republic of Tea for allowing us to continue to do what we love. And for our tea sippers out there, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review. So for the summary of Zombieland. An awkward young guy trying to reach his family in Ohio unexpectedly joins forces with a gun-toting, Twinkie-obsessed man and two sisters trying to travel and survive across a zombie-filled America. So for entertainment, you probably could have guessed, but this movie is a 7.75 for me. It's like if you're a longtime listener, you know I'm not a zombie movie type of person, but this movie is great.
Got a higher rating than I thought it would from you.
No, like this movie I'll watch over and over again. Like it's because it takes a ridiculousness of zombie movies and just like puts it not from just a comedic perspective, but like be like a more realistic perspective, because there's so many times where we're like, why aren't you double tapping, and like, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you and they just bring those issues of zombie movies to the forefront and make fun of it, which I think is really refreshing. Now I will say my only complaint with this movie really is, I guess, two complaints, is that the main character is narrating and he's traveling by himself, and there's points where the movie cuts, like for example when he's saying explaining the kill of the week, and it cuts to someone he doesn't even know, and then it shows the kill. It's like in that moment, yeah, it's funny, but from like a narrative perspective, it kind of makes it
doesn't quite make sense that he would even know about it.
But like from most movies, whenever they have a narrator, it's like the character from a perspective of after the movie took place. Like if it's like
hindsight.
Yeah, like if it's a movie about a kid, it's their adult version reflecting back on the movie, stuff like that. So with it being a real-time narration, like it's in his head, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that they're like, oh, here's the actual kill of the week. So like from a comedy perspective, yeah, it's funny, but from like a typical movie narration perspective, it kind of like isn't that's kind of deemed as like you shouldn't do that type of thing. But so that's one complaint. And the other complaint is the fact that like the character chemistry is so good between all of them, but then like towards the end, it feels like they make the two girls dumb purposely just to push the story.
Well, they add in extra drama that wasn't necessarily needed.
Yeah, they add in extra drama. They set it up where the girls have to be saved by the guy. And it's like, it's like, why set up two very strong female characters? Well, especially one very strong female character only to like have her become the damsel because she did some
Mm-hmm.
stupid stuff like that. It kind of killed the character building in that regard.
bit.
And it made the story feel more forced in that particular. It's like the movie is like really, really good up to the part where they go to the park. And then once they start being dumb at the park, it feels forced.
Yeah.
But like besides that, I love the comedy of the movie. I love the fact that they expand on the ridiculousness of like zombie movies and they like try and fix it. I love the Bill Murray cameo. I think everyone likes the Bill Murray cameo. And the fact that like the way he dies and then like just like just that whole scene is like it didn't need to be in the movie.
He's an
but
amazing actor and I love him.
it's like they didn't need to have that scene in the movie, but like everyone's glad that scene was in their type of thing.
Yes.
But
I'm a little sad that they killed him because it was a stupid thing to do. Like, what did he expect to happen? It's the zombie apocalypse. You go in there dressed and looking like a zombie and sounding like a zombie, then yeah.
But I also love how his death was also like a butt of the joke too, where he's like, "Oh, I never was very good at practical jokes."
Yes.
Like they just like build it up rather than be like,
Never a good
"Oh,
practical joker."
yeah." So
It was my bad.
so like that whole like
He gets poked there. He's like, "That's still tender."
It's just like this movie is
such great though.
It's like this movie is ridiculous in like the best of ways.
Yes.
So it's like if you're not like a zombie movie person, like I still feel like you can get a lot of enjoyment out of this movie. So.
There's so many relatable moments, even like not even with the zombies. It's just the interactions between the four.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing I can mention is like I love how distinct they make all of the characters from each other. But it's like on the one hand, it makes it easy to tell them apart. But on the other hand, it makes the chemistry between the characters a lot more interesting as well. Because like all these characters are like as opposite gets. And somehow they all get along really well.
Well,
like
just a bunch of misfits.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Bunch of misfits, completely different personality types and everything. And they get along so well. They make a nice family.
Yeah. But.
So it's great. This one for me is a solid 8, honestly. I love this movie. It's so much fun. It grabs my attention whenever it's on. So there have been times where I put it on with the intention of it being a background movie, but I get sucked into it every time and end up ignoring whatever I'm supposed to be doing instead and just listening to it. So I end up just fully watching it all the way through instead. And it's a specific kind of movie that can do that, and it's nice. So it's really interesting. It's with the varied personality types, with the humor, with the different varied kills, and the way that they take the story. You really root for Tallahassee finding that Twinkie.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that they don't stop at more places to find the Twinkie. But it's funny that that's like a strong side story arc.
Yeah, like that's like one of the
find
biggest
him a Twinkie.
Character motivations he has.
They call it his one weakness. It's his one weakness. Otherwise, he's a total badass, but he is obsessed with finding a Twinkie. It's great. I love the rules that he goes through because most of them make sense. Most of them make sense. There's a couple that are like, that's kind of a personal thing, but on the whole, they're fair.
Yeah.
And believable. Cardio would be important. Buckling up your seatbelt would definitely be important. I was surprised with all his rules that it wasn't immediately apparent that he needed to check the back seat.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he added it a little bit later when there was an incident. But okay, maybe that's just a girl thing. Like, it's ingrained in me that you always check the back seat before you get into the vehicle anyway. But especially in a zombie apocalypse, maybe double check that your vehicle's secure.
Yeah.
He's smart, even, beyond the rules. Like, he drops his keys and does another lap instead of immediately trying to pick them up and try again with the car door. So he keeps ahead of the zombies and doesn't give them a chance to overwhelm him.
Yeah.
That's freaking refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There were a lot of things that we'll get into in the realism that just, it's not a realistic movie at all.
Well, it's weird because it's
fun.
It seems like it almost tries to be realistic with the rules.
There are moments, yes.
But then on the other hand,
it has a nice balance. I feel like that it's not realistic when you look at it really hardcore, which I can't not do that. You know me.
Yeah.
I can't not do that, but it's relatable enough in situations and interactions that it doesn't take you out of the movie experience completely. So it keeps you drawn in, which that's really hard to do with a movie, by the way.
Yeah.
For it to not be realistic, but still not take you out of the movie experience, especially with someone that looks super hardcore at the realism.
Yeah.
So that's a nice change, and bravo for doing that. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, because I had a similar situation where I'm like, oh, I've seen this movie before. I'm just going to have it in the background. I just got sucked into it.
It's hard not to. It's such a fun, entertaining, hilarious movie.
And even, my husband, who does not like horror movies, he loves this movie.
Yeah, my husband isn't really into horror movies either, but he does like zombie movies. And this one is always just been one that we both laugh at. So it's so much fun. That's the best thing that I can say about it is it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good distraction. It's one to put on and just kill some time because you are going to get sucked into it, most likely.
Yeah, make sure you can finish the movie.
Yes. I get annoyed if I have to stop it. I want to finish the movie. It does feel like there's a little bit of forced drama toward the end, especially when they mention that they are going to travel, like they had agreed to travel as far as Pacific Playland, and then they would go their separate ways. So it sounded like the guys were planning on going with them to the park.
Yeah.
And having some fun, because enjoy the little things is on the list. And they were enjoying spending time together. They were bonding. As much as they were trying not to get too close to each other, you could tell. They were forming some bonds. So I know it was supposed to be like mostly their trust issues, the girls' trust issues.
That's what I took it as.
But it seemed forced all the same. So, and unnecessary. And when they were supposed to be the clever ones, the smart girls, it was a super dumb move.
Yeah.
And really out of character for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when they activated the park, it was a loud, bright beacon.
They were ringing the dinner bell.
To every zombie in the area.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make that much sense. And that is a big point that I'll harp on in the realism, of course. But otherwise, it's a fairly solid movie story-wise.
Mm-hmm.
It does have some flaws with, like, the narration, like you were saying. How could he even have known the actual kill of the week if he's only seen Tallahassee and the girls?
Yeah, it's just so weird. Because, like, in the first half where he is explaining why he has the rules, and then they were cutting to examples of what would happen if you don't follow that rule. That made sense because the movie was showing here's an example.
Yeah.
So that still fit with the narration, but then to him then be like, oh, well, here's the kill of the week. So yeah, they just played with around with that a little bit too much for it to be typical, like movie structure type of. Yeah.
Yeah. Still funny and still entertaining.
Yeah.
And it was a great scene, but it just seemed a little out of place there. But that's what I got as far as entertainment. I'm good with going on to.
So for realism, I gave it a 2.5. So my biggest beef, which I'm sure will be your biggest beef, is they have all of these rules, but like one rule they don't seem to have, which would seem very important, is to not make too much noise. So there are multiple times in the movie where they shoot guns into the air or do like target practice, stuff like that. And like I could understand, yeah, waste of ammo. I could see like if you're needing it for target practice, I could, but it's like don't be doing target practice in the place where you're staying. Like do it like that's it. But it's like even that's, you know, like you said, it's a waste of ammo, and like it's not like you can go to a store and buy ammo. Like you don't know, like even if you go to like a gun store that has ammo, you don't know if it's been previously raided by another person. You have no idea where you're going to get more bullets. So yeah, shooting the gun into the air, especially like when they found the Hummer, I feel like they're like very vulnerable.
Oh my god, yes, that hurt. That physically hurt to watch.
Yeah, and
I know he was enjoying the little things, but you just found that precious resource. Don't waste it all in one go, please, for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And give away your position while you're at it.
Yeah, and then how once they got to the park, how careless Wichita was about their safety.
Yes.
Like, she just turned on all of the lights, which, by the way, if it's the under the world, how are they getting electricity? How are they getting electricity?
So that was actually my biggest issue, to be perfectly honest, was how no matter where they went, all of the utilities worked perfectly normal. They never once had an issue with electricity or water.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh-huh.
Yep. But I think like the lights, it's a little bit more subtle because it's like them shooting a gun into the air. You're like, what the heck? That's making noise. While the lights, like you kind of have to think about it for a second, and you're like, oh yeah. It's like, how would there be lights? But just like, you know, Wichita was so careful about the zombie safety as well as people safety, and then she's over here like, this is fine.
I know she wanted to give her sister a day of just fun and being a kid, but that was still a super dumb move.
Yeah. And then
also the rides don't work like that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. But so once the zombies get there, them abandoning the Hummer was a really dumb move. Like, even with their zombies on top of them, physics, if you stop suddenly, the objects on top will keep moving. So that they could have at least attempted to slam on the brakes, see if the zombies came off, and if they didn't, then like they were able to hang on, then at that point maybe. But it's like the Hummer was the best protection that they had in that area.
Mode of escape.
And yeah, and their mode of escape. But they're
there are more on their way and coming and swarming.
But they're like, no, this is fine. We're going to abandon the moving vehicle and instead trap ourselves on a drop tower. Which
manufactured drama.
Yeah, very manufactured. Like, they literally were they trapped themselves on the ride. And and like that whole
they got the use of that park, and they were making sure that they showed every ride they could.
Like, it was just so frustrating watching that. Once they get to the park, that until the end of the movie, I'm just frustrated when I watch this movie because like, it doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
But and then of course, like, you know, I'm not a ride operator, so I don't know like 100% how everything works. But I would assume that shooting a gun at the control panel is not going to like hold the ride
work
up
as intended.
Yeah. But like I didn't really count off too much on like them being able to activate the ride and then hop on and stuff like. Well, I guess the one thing
I did.
Actually, now that I think about it, the rides these days do have safety mechanisms where if it's a thing that goes over, it literally will not move the ride unless unless all of them are green. Mm-hmm. Unless all of the straps are green. But to be fair, that can actually be overridden. Apparently, it's some specific rides, not all rides, because there was an accident a few years ago where it's actually in a drop tower, actually, where the safety.
Was it actually?
Well, as like that versus a roller coaster, but the person's harness over them wasn't completely secured, and unfortunately they fell out. But the whole thing with that was there wasn't enough. I know they're still trying to investigate what happened, but because the ride operators claimed that all of the buttons were green and it still allowed the ride to go up anyways. But I also know there's times where it's like, as long as they check it and verify that everything's good, they do. A lot of rides have like an override for that because it could just be a light malfunction. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's broken. But anyways, yeah, that's all I got on my end that I can think of. But those were the ones that stuck out the most and bothered me.
So I gave it a 1. The utilities really, really bothered me. So hard.
Because in the convenience store, the refrigerators and stuff were working too, right? Yeah.
All the freezers, all the refrigerators were working just fine. It had clearly been months since this started. Months. And everything's fine and still working like normal. No, that's not how any of this works. Not at all.
Yeah.
But they never have an issue anywhere they go. No. When they find the hostess truck, there's just a buttload of snowballs. Not in boxes or anything, like it cascades down.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's not how they would have transported those. The boxes, they would have been in boxes that were labeled.
Yeah.
So, no. I know why they did it, because just visually seeing them cascade out of the thing, it's disappointing that there's not a single Twinkie, but that's also not the only things that Hostess makes. By the way, are Twinkies and Snowballs. They have other products too.
Well, I'm surprised that they didn't have like a more of a variety of products in the truck.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there would have been ding dongs. There would have been all kinds of things. There would have been all kinds of things. So it's not just Twinkies and Snowballs that Hostess makes. And they wouldn't have just been finding Snowballs.
Plus, are there actually like just Hostess trucks? Because I would think that would be a part of like just everyday like freight that they put.
It depends on the area, I would imagine, because they could potentially be using those trucks to take it to the bigger suppliers for freight. But it just depends. It's also good advertising when you see them out on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't understand how, when they're going back through telling how it all started for him, how he wasn't bit by the zombie neighbor because she turned while he was asleep.
Yeah, that was...
Movie would have been a hell of a lot shorter.
I also did not realize that Amber Heard was in this movie.
Was that? It was her, wasn't it?
It was.
I didn't even realize.
It was. I didn't even know until I was reminding myself of the character names, and I'm like, Amber Heard. It says like 403. That's like what they called her character. I'm like, what? Yeah. And then he said, oh, that's neighbor from blah blah. I'm like, oh. So that was interesting.
The one that tried to bite him. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I did like, though, that he used the top of the toilet as a weapon.
That was very smart.
Because there's so many other movies that I'm like, you have a weapon right there. It is weighted and it will work. And even if on the off chance it breaks, then you can stab with it and it'll still be heavy. So that's a really good weapon that so many people overlook. And it was just so nice to see that. I did appreciate that. But I don't understand how he wasn't bit by her.
Yeah. It's like the movie, it was literally one of those movies got movie moments, because it's like waited for the perfect time for him to wake up, and then she's like, ah.
Yeah, he had plot protection.
Yeah.
So, as the main character, he had plot protection. Tallahassee always picks the biggest gas-guzzling monsters of vehicles that are completely inefficient and don't make that much sense apart from armor-wise.
See, and I also took it as like a slight character flaw, because he does seem to be one of those people who's like, I need to show how manly and powerful I am.
Yes, but at the same time, there's still better, more fuel-efficient vehicles for that, and gas stations are going to run out of gas. And also, if the pumps don't work because electricity and all is out.
Yeah, I just saw that. It's like, do pumps need electricity to be able to work?
Like, they're going to have to find different methods of getting gas, and if it's been months, the gas in other vehicles that they're going to be able to siphon out isn't going to work as well. So you're going to have a problem there.
Well, I know during the pandemic and I wasn't driving, I like looked up how good gas stays in your car. And it said between 6 months to a year, that's the time frame that gas can start getting sludgy and start impacting how it works in your engine.
Yeah. Still, they're not going to find many good sources for gas that are easily attainable, typically. Yeah. So, especially when they're traveling on their own and have to watch their backs while doing this stuff.
Well, you would think that they would at least find, like, if they found a good source for gas, they would at least have containers to put it in.
You would think, but they never once showed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying, like, as a realism, they should have. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They also never showed them getting food.
That's
ever.
Very true. That's
like, they hunted for the Twinkie, but otherwise they never really showed the food.
That's very true.
Ever. So, that's the thing. He expended so much ammo for no reason. And they used guns a lot, which guns are loud. Guns are very loud. Even I feel like in most situations, they would be used as a last resort. Or for like the big groups and things you need immediate firepower for that you cannot use a melee weapon for.
Yeah.
He did use a banjo and he did use a bat a few times. But on the whole, it was guns. And you have a finite source of bullets and there's no guarantee that you're going to find them at the next stop that you're at. Like you were saying, if you found a place that sold ammo, there's no guarantee that it hadn't already been raided by someone else. So conserve what you can, maybe.
Yeah.
I agree with the double tap rule. Make sure that they're dead so that you don't get dead. But when you don't need to use a gun and announce to the entire town your location.
Yeah.
And call the zombies to you and make an even bigger problem, maybe use a melee weapon.
Well, I did find it interesting too how
or a stabby weapon.
They make it very prominent, like point to double tap, but then like whenever there's enough zombies, they don't double tap.
Yeah, they don't. We already talked about the utilities. I mentioned it a few times in my notes. It just never made sense to me how everything worked perfectly normal. That's not how it worked. The prank was really dumb. Again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I like that they at least injected some humor into it of him saying I was never a very good practical joker. And the whole scene was just... Bill Murray's amazing. There was manufactured drama when they left because of the trust issues, which weren't even that bad. She could have just ignored it the next day and, you know, like, this never happened kind of thing. And they were already planning on splitting after the park anyway. So whatever. Like, it didn't have to mean anything to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seemed dumb that they left them all together. And they put themselves in that damsel in distress situation. They abandoned the vehicle, which was also stupid, and stayed in the park instead of trying to find a way out of the park, which was also very stupid and against character.
Yeah.
Those rides, I don't believe they would have worked like they were showing. Like, they weren't even hitting the buttons to make the rides work or anything. They were just getting on the rides. And it was like a ghost was operating it. No. Also, when they got to the park, the gate wasn't actually locked. The chain literally just fell off.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't even together. Big loud beacon of the park, calling every zombie ever in the area to them. I don't know what they expected, honestly. So when they're on the tower, I doubt effing up the control box would stop the ride where it is. And honestly, I feel like it would be more likely for it to bring it down to ground level.
Yeah.
If nothing else, for safety reasons.
Yeah.
But even if it did stop it at that level, at the end, once all the zombies were dealt with, the main guy was able to use the lever to bring it down of the box that was supposed to be wrecked.
Yep.
All of the buttons were perfectly fine on the control box when they showed it. Like, there was no damage to it. And he was able to use the release lever, and it worked just fine. Perfectly, as intended. No. You'd be finding a freaking ladder at that point. No. Also, while freaking awesome and epic and badass as the kills were for Tallahassee, especially when he was enclosed in that booth, they would have, one, torn through that booth, especially with their numbers, and two, he would have run out of ammo. There ain't no way in hell. Sorry, but no. So those were the big points that I had. The complete and utter disregard for how utilities work, though, was the biggest thing that just drove me nuts. Otherwise, it's a very entertaining movie. It's just, they're very inconsistent with it, especially since they never once tried to use a phone or the internet. If everything else works perfectly fine, but he can't, he was traveling to
Ohio.
Columbus to try to find his parents, but they never once showed him trying to call. But all the other utilities work just fine.
Yeah, that's very true.
You can't say the cell towers and all are down and phone lines are down, but electricity and water works just fine.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. So pick one. Either everything works, which is BS anyway, or none of it works. And there's a real problem.
Yeah.
Also, the grocery store that they went into was not pick clean. Crisis situations, even just like bad storms, people go nuts and clear out grocery stores of everything. The pandemic, shelves were empty when the pandemic first hit.
The weirdest things, too.
Of the weirdest things.
Yeah, because I know, like...
There were things that made sense for it to be gone. Like a lot of the pastas, bread, milk, eggs, stuff like that. That made sense. But like even cereals and snack cakes and like the most off-the-wall things were all completely gone.
Well, see, for me, like, yeah, the pandemic, that was one thing. And people hoarding toilet paper, that was weird.
Yes.
But like, if for the zombie apocalypse, it would be like non-perishables that I can picture being picked clean. But yeah, it's like in Texas, like when our winter storm hit, people were like picking off the milk specifically. I'm like, that's weird. I'm sorry. Like, why milk specifically? Like, what are you going to? I mean, I guess cereal.
Cereal, I guess, or if you're making like baking stuff.
But it's
oftentimes they use milk.
But it's like people freak out so that, and like by that, in case their electricity goes out, it's like, well.
But if the electricity goes out, then how are you going to keep it at temp?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
I mean, I guess if it's cold enough, you can just stick it outside.
If it's cold enough, though, and
It depends on the kind of storm.
Yeah. It's a little shoddy in Texas.
A little bit. We often don't know what kind of weather we're going to have that day.
Yeah.
It usually changes a lot during the day anyway, so,
Yep.
But except in the summer, and then it's just straight up heat.
Yeah. But it's a really fun movie. I think it's, if you haven't seen this movie, it's worth a watch. Even if you're not into zombies or into horror in general, it's just a fun ride.
Yep.
But,
it is. But it's not realistic, but it's a fun ride.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Lots of good comedy movements.
Yes.
But thank you for joining us today, and let us know what you thought of the movie. If you'd like to recommend a movie, game, or tea, you can leave us a comment or join our Discord. And if you'd like to keep up to date with our content, you can find our link tree listed below.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our content. We also have a Teespring and PayPal donate button if you'd like to support us monetarily, along with our Republic of Tea affiliate link. It does not affect the price of the tea. It just helps us to continue to do what we love. You can find all of the sites mentioned linked below. But until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye.
Bye.